What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Patricia. You can call me Petey for short. And it has been a while. There are a lot of updates that I need to kind of talk to you about. So before we get into today's video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to share this video, turn on your post notifications, and I'm just going to give you a warning in advance. Excuse me if I get like winded or short of breath. This video is going to be about surgery. Trigger warning if you have a weak stomach, maybe shouldn't watch this, but let's get into it. Okay, you guys, so when I was going to do this video, I was going to attempt to do makeup and just look presentable, but what's the point? I'm literally day 4 post-surgery, so there's just no point, and I don't have the energy to do it. So I just recently, today is Saturday, on Tuesday I had a partial thyroidectomy. And if you don't know what that means, it's pretty much having half of your thyroid taken out. And so I'll kind of go into like what led me to that decision, we'll go into the whole thing. So last year, I want to say it was in June, I noticed like this lump on the left side of my neck. And initially I didn't really think much of it because I had been sick. So I just assumed like it was a swollen lymph node, but I noticed like it was pretty big, and I work in healthcare, so I had got one of the nurses at the time. I was like, hey, like, feel this, does this feel normal to you? And she was just like, no, like that feels like something that's not supposed to be there. And so I noticed like a couple months went by, it never went away, and I felt like it was kind of growing. So I made an appointment with my primary doctor, and you know, with me having lupus and stuff, anything that's not supposed to be there is just a little bit concerning for them. So she was like, you know, that is a little bit concerning. I'm gonna refer you to get an ultrasound. So I ended up having like an ultrasound done, a CAT scan. And so typically during ultrasounds, like whether it's the ultrasound for like a baby or just anything, the technician doesn't tell you anything. They wait until the doctor is able to do it. So when the technician had put it on there, she was like, yep, there it is. And I was just like, you know, typically they don't say anything, so that kind of caught me off guard. And so I ended up being referred to an ENT. And when I got to the ENT, he like measured, he looked over the CAT scan, he looked over the ultrasound, and he was just like, yeah, like at the time it was about a 4.2 to 4.6, I can't remember exactly, centimeter mass. And you know, during that time he was like, it could be benign, sometimes these things just happen, or you know, it could be cancerous, but I want to do like a biopsy. So I'm like, okay, cool. He does the biopsy, like the fine needle. A few days go by, I get a call back that it was benign, but his recommendation is, number 1, this mass is not supposed to be there, and number 2, due to the size of it and because of how like small I am, he was like, you know, I recommend having surgery to get it taken out. So we kind of go over surgery, and I was just like, no, like it just sounded too scary for me. And at the time, other than the mass being there, like it didn't bother me at all. So I declined surgery, and once I knew it was benign, I was like, well, it's not cancer, so there's no point in me getting it taken out. So fast forward to now it's April and a whole new year, and I feel like this year it really started to bother me a lot. Like I was constantly having to clear my throat. I was constantly feeling like I really couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't talk or sing past a certain point without feeling like the mass was literally like squeezing, like almost like it was choking me or just pressing down so much that I was struggling. And so again, I work in healthcare, so I'm around nurses and doctors and stuff all day. So I was kind of talking to them again about this, and I was, you know, I've never, the girl that I share office with, she was like, you've been clearing your throat like all day for like the past week. And I was like, I know, like I feel like this is kind of starting to bother me. And they were like, you know, I think that you need to get it checked out again. Like it's been almost a year. It could have grown. You need to get it checked out. So I make an appointment with the ENT, and he's like, you know, so at this time I'm really considering like, maybe I do just need to have surgery. Maybe it's just not supposed to be there. So I started to become more open to the idea of having surgery, but of course I still wanted to have a doctor's appointment first. So I go to the ENT, he ultrasounds it again, and he puts it on there. He's like, whoa, that's big. And I'm like, great. So because of the size of it, like he couldn't even really get accurate measurements, but it had grown from last year up until now. And so my husband's with me, and the doctor is pretty much like, you know what I'm asking you without asking. I'm like, I know. You're asking me about surgery. And he's like, so what do you want to do? And I was like, you know what, like, let's go ahead and schedule it. So at this time, it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks out, like surgery was. And I'm not going to lie, like there was all this fear that I had as far as surgery. Like I've never been put to sleep. I've never had any major, I've had 2 C-sections, but of course I was awake for those. So I just never had to be put on a breathing tube. I've never had, let alone my throat cut open. So there was all this fear. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, what if I don't make it through it? Like, what if I don't make it through surgery? What if they slip my vocal cords and I'm never able to talk or sing again? Like there were all these things. And I just remember like we had just been asking everybody to pray. Like number 1, let's pray that it's not cancer. But 2, pray that the fear like subsides, because it was bad. Like I was very, very fearful, and I became so anxious. So like I would start having panic attacks, and it was just really bad. So basically when I'm leaving the appointment, he was like, the scheduler will call you to set up a date. And I'm like, perfect. And I tell him at the appointment, I'm like, the sooner the better, because the longer that I have to wait, I'm going to talk myself out of it, just like I did last year. And he's like, perfect, good to know, whatever. And so maybe like a day later, the scheduler calls me. She's like, I haven't forgotten about you. Like I'm still trying to get you scheduled. Like he's pretty booked up, and his note said that he wants to do it ASAP. So like I'm just trying to get you booked. So I'm like, okay. She calls me back a day later. She calls me on a Wednesday, and she's like, look, we got you scheduled for next Tuesday, come Friday for your pre-op. And I'm just like, that was fast. So again, like all this fear starts to creep in, and I'm just like, man, like I know that this is something I have to do, but I'm scared. Like I'm very scared. So again, we just started praying, and as the days are leading up to surgery, at my pre-op appointment, he's just kind of going over how the surgery will go, what the procedure is going to be like, what the healing is like. And you know, I just had all these questions that I'm asking, and he pretty much told me oh, sorry. He's like, you know, the plan for right now is to just take out that left side where your mass is. He's like, but if we go in and we see that it looks cancerous, like, do you give us permission to go ahead and take the whole thing out? And I'm like, yeah, like if it's cancerous, let's take it out. But if it's not, like just leave that one side and we'll figure it out. So he's like, okay, cool. So now comes the day of surgery. And truthfully, like the night before and the morning of surgery, like I just felt this calmness. It was like something came over me, and I really felt like God was just like, look, I'm with you. I have been with you throughout this entire journey, even setting you up with the doctor I set you up with. Like I have been very strategic in this whole thing. So surgery day, like I'm calm. Me and my husband get there, we check in, and I will say they were pretty fast. Like I think I only waited for like 10 minutes before they called me back. So they call us to the back, and at this time I'm still very calm, and we're just going over everything. You know, they're getting my IV in, and I like change or whatever. And so when they come back, the nurse was like, well, there's one more person ahead of you, so you may be pushed back just a little bit. So I'm like, cool. But I noticed that I'm starting to get anxious. I'm like, okay, like how much longer am I gonna have to wait? Because the longer I wait, like I just want to hurry up and get it over with. So maybe like 30 minutes goes by. My doctor comes in. He's like, you know, how are you feeling? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I feel good. Like I'm just, it's ready to get over with. And he's asking, do we have any last minute questions or whatever? So I'm like, no. So maybe 10 minutes after that, the nurse comes in and she's like, it's your turn. So she says that, and she walks off to go do something. And I look at my husband, and I was just like, I'm about to cry. And he's like, what's wrong? Like, what are you feeling? I was like, I just feel really anxious all of a sudden. And you guys, I just broke down crying. Like this fear came over me again, that like, what if something happens? What if, like, I've never done this, so how's this gonna go? And I just remember he was just like rubbing my hands. He was like, it's gonna be okay, like it's gonna be fine. And I looked at him, I was like, are you nervous? He was like, I'm not gonna lie, like I am nervous. So I get myself together. The doctor comes back one more time, and he had forgot to like mark me, so he was like marking where he was gonna have to do surgery. And he's like, you okay? And I was like, well, I just had a moment, like I think I've gotten all my crying out. And he was like, go ahead and get it out. He's like, it's gonna be fine, like everything's gonna be fine. So I'm like, okay. So the nurse is like, I'm gonna give you something in your IV to calm you down a little bit because I can tell you're anxious, but it's just part of the process, like they always do that. So it was called Versed or Versed or something. So she pushes that in, and literally she didn't even grab my bed to wheel me. I looked at my husband, I was like, I feel it. So as she's taking me to the OR, it was only like not far at all. I'm just like, oh boy, like I'm trying to stay awake. I'm just very calm. So all I remember going into the OR. I remember seeing all the doctors, and I remember hearing them say, like, introducing me to them. And I just remember them putting a mask on my face, and I was out. So I think my surgery only ended up taking two and a half hours. So they wheeled me to, not recovery, but it's like the room you go in before you get to recovery. And I was just it was so much going on. Like I was still trying to wake up from the anesthesia, all the pain meds. So I could hear everything the nurse was saying, but I could not open my eyes, or I could not like let her know that I was awake. So I just remember hearing like, Miss Logan, are you in any pain? And I'm literally like trying to open my eyes, and I just can't. I'm like, oh boy, like it's gonna take me a minute to wake up. So she like lets me get myself together. So I finally open my eyes, and I'm like, so she's like, are you in any pain? And I couldn't talk, so I remember doing like this. I remember saying like, it's a 6 out of 10. And aside from just having surgery, I had started my period the night before. So, you know, the night before you're fasting, so I couldn't take any meds, and my cramps were on like 1,000. So I remember saying a 6, and I remember whispering like, I started my period last night, so like my stomach is hurting too. She was like, okay, like we'll give you some medicine. So she like, I guess, pushes something through the IV. She waits a little bit. She's like, what's your pain now? And it wasn't long in there for the medicine to kick in, so I'm still like, it's a 6. So more time goes by, and it got down to like a 4, so I didn't feel like I needed anything else. And she was like, all right, you know, I'm checking your vitals. We're gonna take you into the recovery room, like where your husband is. So I'm like, perfect. They take me in recovery. They sit me in like a recliner, and I was still just so sleepy from the medicine. So my husband and my dad came in, and I remember seeing them, but I was just like, so my dad was like, you want me to turn the light off so you can go to sleep? And I'm like, yes. So they got like my feet propped up, and I'm just like, I'm out. And they offered me like a Coke and crackers. So I was able to eat and drink right after, which I didn't expect. I thought I was going to be on like liquids for a while. Like I thought I was going to have a really sore throat, but I didn't. The only pain that I really had, like the incision wasn't hurting. There was a lot of pressure, but the pain was more so from the breathing tube. Like I could tell that it had caused my throat to be sore. And then my lip, which is still numb, completely numb. My left side of my lip is still numb, which I'm assuming is from the breathing tube like resting on it for so long. I thought that would have gone away by now, but it hasn't, but I'm sure it will. So I really didn't have any like pain after. It was just more of like discomfort, and I could tell that it was from the breathing tube. So I'm day 4 now, and the healing process has been way better than what I expected. The only day that I had like issues, I would say it was day 2, 3, and I just had like a really bad migraine that I felt like was the worst migraine I've ever had in my entire life, and it lasted for hours. And then I had nausea and vomiting, so I was throwing up, and that alone scared the crap out of me, because I'm like, I'm throwing up with the open, like it was just, the thought of it was more scary than actually, oh, this piece of hair was actually more scary than like doing it. But aside from that, like I've been feeling okay. I have my post-op appointment on Tuesday, so I'm sure they're probably going to check the incision. I'm sure they're going to do blood work to see if I'll have to start thyroid medication. So it's common to not have to with half a thyroid, because typically half a thyroid can do the same job as the whole thing. So I'm praying that my levels and everything are good to where I won't have to take medication. I still have not heard back from the pathologist yet. So when they went in, basically when I woke up, I asked my husband, like, did they do half or the whole? And he said they did half, like everything looked okay. But the pathologist was still going to test the cells of the mass to see if anything looked cancerous. So I haven't heard back from that yet. Hopefully no news is good news. Then they said like 3 to 5 days, and it's only been like 3 as far as business days. So they may just wait until my post-op appointment to tell me. So God forbid, if anything were cancerous, their plan would be to go back in and take out the whole thyroid so that all the cells and everything are, you know, gone. So hopefully that won't be the case. But overall, like, I feel pretty good. My neck is still very stiff. Like, I can move it here and here, and I have to be intentional about keeping my shoulders down. But it's super tight. You know, talking makes me very winded, so I keep like getting out of breath. I've enjoyed, honestly, just resting, like being able to do nothing. My husband is the house under control, he has the kids under control, and I can just rest and like take my time doing that. One thing they told me at my pre-op appointment, so I do lead praise and worship occasionally, and he was saying that I probably won't have the control that I used to have over like my vocals. So, you know, it's still only the first week, so I'm praying that that'll come back. I tried singing last night just to see what I could do. Tomatoes, like, horrible. But he did tell my husband, like, none of my vocal cords or nerves were damaged in the process. So, you know, just going to be healing and then see, you know, what I'm able to do. So that'll suck if I can't. But I'm just so thankful that everything went well. My doctor was amazing. Like, I have never felt so comfortable with the doctor. I did my research on him. Like, you know, I read his reviews, like people that knew him. I kind of asked like what their experience was like with him, and I will say he is a believer, which made me even more comfortable because I felt comfortable with him. Like, he reassured me that everything was going to be okay. Like, he was playing worship music during the surgery, so there was just this peace that I felt with him, and I don't know, he was just truly a godsend, and I'm just very thankful that I was put with him. So yeah, so that is pretty much it. That the mass and it bothered me is the reason that I ended up deciding to go with the surgery. My doctor making me feel comfortable is another reason that I went into the surgery. And then, you know, just knowing that that was something that wasn't supposed to be there, I knew that it needed to be taken out because it was giving me issues. And, you know, you just have this thought of like, what if one day I wake up and it just cuts off my airway? So there were all these things going through my head, but everything is going well. Let me see. This is kind of what we're looking like right now. It's kind of hard to see because I still have a steri strip. They said that this will fall off on its own, so we'll see. But yep, that is it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, leave them below, or maybe if you're in a situation where you may be going through or planning to have the same or similar surgery, it's not as bad as you think. I watched so many YouTube videos before having this. I researched everything, and I will say the recovery process is a lot better than what I thought, or, you know, some videos that I saw. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, leave any questions you may have down below, and let me know what you guys would like to see from me in the future.